Marita Golden again. Thank you for joining me for another conversation in my series of conversations with new, strong Black women about prioritizing self-care, health, and healing. I'm talking today with DeBorah Gilbert White, who is the author of a book, a wonderful new book that I helped her work on, and I'm very proud that she's published it. It's called Beyond Charity, A Sojourner's Reflections on Homelessness, Advocacy, Empowerment, and Hope. And it's a very, very important book whose time I think has really come. DeBorah is a social psychologist, and she's an advocate for people experiencing homelessness. So Deborah and I are going to talk about how she found herself unexpectedly being unhoused and how it affected her emotionally and how she's begun the process of healing. DeBorah?
Yes, thank you so much, Marita, and thank you so much for this opportunity to share my story with your audience. Yes, I became homeless in 2011 and was sheltered homeless in 2012 after couch surfing with my brother, staying with him for a few months, spending a week in a motel on a charity voucher, and then winding up at a women's and children's shelter in Wilmington, Delaware. At the time when I experienced homelessness, I didn't think about it as a traumatic experience for myself. I knew that I was identified as homeless. I knew I was unhoused, and I knew that it was a temporary situation. And I think having that understanding personally, I knew that that was going to change within 30 days. To backtrack some, when I did not have housing and I was staying with my brother, I just started to do paperwork to draw my pension. I had worked for over 17 years with one organization that I had a pension with that I could pull at age 55. And entering the shelter within days of my 55th birthday, I knew that I would be able to pull that pension to find a place to live and to pay the rent for that place. So the anxiety of, how long was I going to be here and all of that was not part of my experience. Part of my experience was looking at what I was looking at and observing and seeing as a client, as a person living in a shelter. And so one thing that helped me through that was my faith. I am a person of faith, and I knew that there had to be more to this experience than what I was seeing at that time, that it had to be more to it. And the first night at the shelter, as I laid on the bed, I was on the top bunk in my room with 5 other women. I asked the higher power, I asked God, what is this about? And so that helped to frame my thinking around what I was going through at that time.
Now, you said that you didn't realize until later that you had been traumatized. And yes. I guess that's because you were so busy just going through it, filling out paperwork, planning for your life after this. And just tell everyone that you were, what your profession was before you became homeless.
Okay, before I became homeless, I was a diversity and inclusion expert, a specialist. I have a master's in diversity and inclusion with a specialty working with organizations. And then also I have a PhD in psychology with a specialization in social psychology. So my work was centered around with organizations, making them more diverse, helping to understand the different isms that we experience in the workplace as well as in society, and doing anti-racism work and all that. And so that's what I was doing. But I was downsized from my last position, which caused me to relocate, and had a wonderful severance package, but it ran out before I could find new work. And so that's how I wound up not having enough income to support me after going through savings and, asking friends and family, for assistance. I realized that I was in a position where I did not have enough money to pay rent, even though I was working part-time, as a university professor. And so I had that income coming in, but it still wasn't enough to maintain housing.
Mhm. So when did it hit you that the experience had been traumatic?
It was after I came out of it.
Mhm.
When in fact, it was after I came out of it, the first night that I was in my new place. That was the first time that I cried
Mm.
about the situation. I remember being in this empty apartment that night, looking out the window in the bedroom, and I just sat on the floor against the wall and just started crying. Um, and that's when I realized that all the emotions that I had just gone through, I had never lived in a congregate setting before. It had been a while since I had to adhere to rules and regulations
Right.
about going and coming and that type of thing.
Right.
And so it was like, I knew I was free, no more curfews, and no
Right.
more this, that, and the other connected to what you go through when you're working with the system. So that was when I realized that it was a traumatic experience, when I sat down and just cried.
What were some of the emotions that you had held in that were now released? What were some of the emotions and feelings that were
One
being
was,
released?
a feeling of loss, because not only had I lost my housing, but I had lost my job. That's what had led to all this.
Mhm.
I had lost friends when I relocated, being in contact with them every day. Although with technology now, we stay in contact, and some of them I even write about in the book because we stay connected throughout this time. But just that day-to-day contact, that support network was not there. Um, I lost being able to feeling like I was not able to share the experience with my family members. So
Sure.
I lost that type of connection. I did not want to burden them with what I was going through. I just thought it would pass. It's going to pass. And, maybe and writing a book, of course, I shared with them eventually. But as I was going through it, that wasn't it. But also, there was a sense of a loss of my um, not dignity for myself per se, but for other people that were in the same situation. I always had hope. I knew that I was going through this for some reason. It wasn't evident at that time, but it just was just losing fully who the person I was
Right.
before I became homeless. I had lost that identity, but also now I had gained another identity, which was being someone who could be identified as homeless.
So once you had that cry and you began to face the emotions that you had buried to just sort of get through the
Mm-hmm.
situation of homelessness, how did you think about how you would heal from what had happened to you? And what did you do to
Mm-hmm.
heal?
Yeah. I knew that my healing, first of all, had to, again, go back to my faith, knowing that this was something that was temporary, and knowing that the God in me was was going to be revealed in different ways. Also, I healed because my response to the situation, to what I saw and the experience, was a fight response. I wanted to do something that would make things different for myself as well as for other people who would go through that experience. And so my healing was in the fight for housing for people, in the fight for dignity, in the fight for the rights of people experiencing homelessness. Coming through that experience, I realized that people were treated differently because of how they were identified, beyond race and gender. I knew about that, but housing status now was upfront and personal for me.
So you're saying that in your activism, you found healing by helping others and by working on behalf of others.
Yes, that's really what happened. And the healing comes in me not only being reminded of what I went through, but also being someone who can be supportive of others who are going through the same thing or are at risk of losing their housing. And I found that fight to be something more of beyond the charity piece. That's why the book is titled what it is, Beyond Charity, because it had to be something that was long-term and something that was transformative. And charity is great. It helped me. It helps a lot of people every day. We're moving into a season now that, you know, November and December is a high season for people to become aware and energized around helping others, and particularly people who are experiencing homelessness. My fight is to help people to understand that we have to do something beyond the good feelings. We have to do something that will change the situation so people will have housing. Everyone will have the housing that they need in the richest country in the world.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Yeah. If you were talking to someone who was experiencing housing, being unhoused now, what would you say to them about how to emotionally get through that experience?
Well, I have been fortunate enough to work with and continue to work with organizations and groups that are working on different issues connected to housing and homelessness. And what we've been doing now is working around equity and justice. And so one of the pieces in the equity and justice lens is to look for people who can be a support to you, a peer support, you know, seek out groups and organizations that help to affirm who you are beyond your housing status. People that understand, you know, what you're going through, and also to get involved in your own advocacy. I think it is a key component that as a survivor, I see myself as a survivor of many things. And as a survivor of having experiencing homelessness, one of the key components is to be an advocate for yourself so that you can advocate for others.
Right. So in closing, what are the practices that you engage in daily that help you to maintain emotional balance, to relieve stress, and to stay healthy?
Now, when you put daily in there, that changes everything.
Or I'll say regularly.
Okay.
Regularly.
I can't say that I do these things daily, but one thing that I like to do, I like to walk. I live near a park.
Okay.
And I'm in DC, and I live near a park. It's 2 blocks down from my house. And I go there at least 3 times a week to walk the park. I have a walking path. And while I'm walking, I'm listening to my music. And it goes back, I love choirs and I love contemporary gospel music. So I'm walking to, you know, John P. Key and to CeCe Winans and, you know, to, you know, James Cleveland every now and then, you know, and so that's what I do. And when I come back home, I'm just ready for the day. And I like to do it early in the morning. I like the stillness and the quietness of the morning. And so that's what I do. Another thing I do, I sometimes I look at mindless TV, just anything that's, you know, that I
agree with you. I record comedies just so I'll have something to laugh about.
Yeah, just something mindless that, you know, I don't have to put on my psychological hat to, okay, that's, you know, just something that I don't have to think about. I'm looking at it, so okay, you know, I make a little comment here and there, stuff like that. And then I like just, you know, connecting with my friends. You know, we'll do Zoom, you know, or, you know, I'll have someone come visit with me to the city, you know, being DC, people come here a lot, and connecting with people and going out, you know, before COVID more, but, you know, a little less now that we have COVID, but still enjoying the surroundings of this city. Yeah.
Right. Well, that sounds like a great recipe. Great recipe.
It's working. It
is, because you look great.
Thank
you, DeBorah. Thank you for talking to me. And really, I thank you for writing this book. And I urge anyone who just wants a good read, or anybody who cares about the homeless situation in our country, to buy on Amazon, or a copy of Beyond Charity, A Sojourner's Reflections on Homelessness, Advocacy, Empowerment, and Hope by DeBorah Gilbert White. Thank you again, DeBorah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.